So, hi everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. So, today in our Vidyashala, we are discussing comprehension. Okay. So, comprehension, you know that, of course, 2025 UPSC prelims is coming near. So, I thought of giving you some insights regarding how to crack preliminary CSAT paper 2 examinations, the comprehension section. Okay, because we know that comprehension is very important, and we also have lots of examples of candidates who have cracked this CSAT paper 2 only with the help of comprehension, and also with by solving some reasoning questions. So, but I don't suggest that strategy, and I would love to suggest you that make sure that you are good with quant as well as in the reasoning section as well as in the comprehension section. I know quite it is difficult for many of the aspirants to solve the quant questions, and but you must have the aptitude enough to solve the reasoning as well as the comprehension section. So here in this section, I thought of doing a series of PYQ 2021 and 2022 and 2023 and 2024, so that these are the very recent years question papers, so that you will understand the trend and you will understand like how you have to approach the comprehension. And the comprehension solving is really easy, but the thing is because you will be in that kind of atmosphere where you will be in a very quick way, like you will be like in that panic mode. Sometimes you would lose your logical thinking and you would mark something else, but it is very much important to maintain the calmness in the chaos. And what I would just suggest you that make sure that you just read the small passages first, and then go to the large passages. Okay, first to finish the small passages, and then just we can just go to the big passages. But the thing is, you should be able to finish the passages within 3 minutes. You should not give more than 3 minutes, because when you just lose yourself within the passage, you will never know that how much time you are losing out. So make sure that you are quick enough and you just jump. If you just don't get the answer, just jump to the next question. Okay, and different people follow different strategies. Few people will just solve the passages first, and then they'll go to the reasoning, and then they'll go to the quant section. But there are few people who will just attempt the question as they just turn out the pages. So if they get quant and if they get reasoning in between, if they just get the comprehension, they'll just solve as and when they just turn out the pages, and or as and when they get the question, they just solve it and move on. And this is another one strategy, and this is the first strategy, the second strategy, and third strategy. What people follow is who are good at quant, they'll just do the quant section first, and then they'll just move to the comprehension, and then the comprehension or reasoning, and then the comprehension. So this is how people will do. So based on your knowledge, like you will be knowing your strength and weaknesses. Based on that, you can just adopt different strategies that would suit you. So that's what I would love to say. But most of the people who are from the arts background or commerce background, who would or non-math background people who doesn't like math, they can just get thorough with the comprehension and RC section, reasoning section, and then you can just attend the quant section. I would suggest this particular strategy, but you should be quick enough. Within the 2 hours, you should make sure that you are done with everything within 1 hour. So most of the people will spend their initial 1 hour in the comprehension section itself. Like they'll be reading the passages. The passages will be big, and then they'll just waste much of their time in just reading out and finding out the answer. But I would suggest that you should be done with your comprehension within 40 minutes. So you should not give more than 40 minutes to your comprehension, and within 40 minutes you should be able to answer all the comprehension, and the remaining 20 minutes you should focus on your reasoning section. And then after, like by that time, 1 hour will be over, and still you will be remained with another 1 hour. Make sure that you attend quant section as well as quant section, and then come to the comprehension and reasoning for the second round, and make sure you go through the comprehension and reasoning for the third round as well. Okay, this is what like I would love to suggest you. Like I can give you the brief idea. First 40 minutes just do with the comprehension. Okay, then 20 minutes, finish the reasoning. Okay, take another 10 minutes if you want, finish the reasoning. 30 minutes. Okay, for that, like 1 hour 10 minutes will be over by that time. Okay, then what you gonna do, like remaining 50 minutes will be remaining. You can just spend 20 minutes on quant. Okay, like if you are not good with a quant, you can just spend 20 minutes and you can answer the easy question if they have asked. So by that time 1 hour 30 minutes will be over. So this 30 minutes divide it into 15 minutes. So this first round of 15 minutes, so this is the second round. You'll be going through the comprehension and reasoning, and this is the third round. You'll be going through the comprehension and reasoning. So you're done with it. You'll be going through the question paper thrice. If you are not good with the quant, you'll be attending quant only for the one time, and remaining 3 times you will be attending the comprehension and reasoning. Okay, 3 times is also not necessary. You can just go through the quants, the comprehension and reasoning only twice. But make sure that you are not giving much time initially. Give 40 minutes to comprehension and 20 or 30 minutes to reasoning. Okay, then you will be done with 1 hour 10 minutes. Remaining 50 minutes, make sure that you get you take only 20 minutes with a quant, and remaining some 30 minutes, make sure that within this 30 minutes the comprehension and reasoning whatever you have attended is right. So that's all. That's how I would love to give you this kind of a strategy for people who are not good at quant, and who wants to clear the CSAT paper only with the help of comprehension and reasoning. But it's a very serious suggestion from my side is to make sure that you know quant as well, because you just don't know how UPSC can play with alva. So for that sake, okay, without any delay, let's just dive into the concept. Okay, so yeah, here, like if you just see the comprehension, like you will understand one thing, that is like every year the comprehension will be asked, and the question will be asked based on the 4 major vocabularies. In more than vocabulary, what I can say that the question will have these 4 vocabularies. What are those vocabularies? They are either the question will contain assumption, okay, otherwise the question will have a word called as crux, otherwise the question will have a word called as inference. It can be simply an inference, otherwise critical inference. Okay, otherwise the question will have corollary. What's the corollary of the passage? Like that, they'll every question you can just if you don't believe my words, just take out the PYQ and just see the PYQ. You will just definitely will understand, like every question will have these kind of words. So as a result, in order to answer the questions of the passages given, so you have to know the meaning of these words. Okay, then only you can really understand what's the question is, what's the demand of the question, and then only you can answer it. So that's why I would love to answer give you the explanation what actually this words actually mean. Okay, firstly, assumption. What is the assumption that you can draw from the above passage? This would be the question. So assumption means, what is assumption? You would have learned in your maths, like derive the like assumptions, and for like theorems and assumptions. I think you are familiar with assumption are like guessing, like you are just guessing it, that's all. Like based on the above passage, after reading the passage, you can assume something. I can assume something based on the facts that I have given explicitly and implicitly. So that guessing is called as assumption, and this guessing has should not be blind. It should be based on the fact that is given in the passage. So that particular opt guessing is called as assumptions. Okay, is that clear? Then the second word is crux. They'll ask what is the crux of the above passage given. That would be the question that they would frame. So crux means it is the most important or the critical point, we can say. It's the very important point, or it's the very important part of the passage. So in the passage, there would come a incident that would play a very important role, or it could be a very important matter, or it can be a very important argument or a problem or a issue, or it can be a very important point of the whole passage. Okay, that particular important point is called as crux. Okay, that is called as crux. Then I think this part is also I have explained. I think you guys could clear it. Okay, the next word is inference. What do you mean by inference? Inference means it's drawing conclusion. Inference is nothing but a conclusion. Okay, you should understand this. The whatever the conclusion or understanding or the meaning that you get, which has been stated explicitly from the passages or the text, but which are not explicitly mentioned. Like inference means it's actually the conclusion that you can draw from the passage that has been given and which is not explicitly said. They'll directly not tell the fact. They will just indirectly say that it will, the whatever the answer will be just present implicitly or indirectly. So you will be drawing the conclusion out of it. That particular conclusion is called as, or the clue that the author has given, that is called as inference. Okay, it is just a conclusion which has not been explicitly said here. That is called as inference. It's a very important point of the passage. And come to the next point, that is corollary. What does corollary mean? Corollary means it's a natural consequence or a result that follows directly from something else. It's a natural consequence. It is called as the end result. You can just write end result. So corollary means it's the, what is the end result from the consequences. Like something has happened, some statement has been given. So what is the end result of it? Or like what's the main idea or a statement of the or the like what I can just say is it follows directly from something else of a main idea or a statement. There will be a main idea or a main statement or whatever the main consequences or the result of the main consequences. So whatever the result or the end result that you get from this main statement is that particular conclusion is called as corollary. Okay, so hope you got hope you got to know all this. So crux means it's a very important point. Inference means what the conclusion that you can draw from the things that has been implicitly said, and corollary means what is the end result. Corollary means end. Okay, I think everything is clear now. Okay, let's move on to the first passage. Okay, so with respect to what are called denominations. Okay, with respect to what are called as, let me select my pen, I think, yeah. With respect to what are called as denominations of religion, if everyone is left to be a judge of his own religion, there is no such things as religion that is wrong. But if they are to be judge of each other's religion, there is no such things that as a religion that is right. And therefore all the world is right or all the world is wrong in the matter of religion. Okay, I think you people got to know the passage, but the thing is here you should make sure that you should underline the things that you feel like they are important. Like if you just observe the passage, they are almost like similar looking. Like you feel like rereading the passage because they'll be saying the same thing. Like they'll be conveying different things through the same sentences. See, if they are left to be a judge of his own religion, there is no such things in the religion that is wrong. But if they are to be a judge of each other's religion, there is no such thing as a religion that is right. Okay, see, they have used the similar type of sentences in order to confuse the aspirants, but they are going to convey some different things. Okay, so the question is, what is the most logical assumption that can be made from the passages given above? So what's the logical guess that you can make from the passage given above? One is, no man can live without adhering to some religious denomination. Oh my god, this is no man can live. Isn't it extreme? Just observe this, just underline this kind of an extreme statement so that it will help you in eliminating the options. Okay, make sure that you underline the important sentences in the passage as well as underline the extreme statements in the question as well, and underline what they have asked, because sometimes people will be in their in their cautiousness, they feel like they have asked a crux, and otherwise sometimes they'll see the crux question and they'll assume that they have asked the corollary. So there's a huge difference between these two words. So make sure that in the question what they've asked, you should make sure that you have underlined it and you are rereading it so that your eye will be on the underlined thing, and so that you can easily eliminate the answers that are not relevant and you can just click the right answer. So this is no man. First option is, no man can live without adhering to some religious denominations. Option B is, it is the duty of everyone to propagate one's religion. Is it the duty of everyone propagate one's religion? Have they talked about duty? Okay, let's see. So the third option is religious denomination tend to ignore the unity of man. Okay, they are talking about unity of man. So option D says that men do not understand their own religious denominations. So fourth option is saying that the no men actually, just men do not understand their own religious denominations. Okay, I'll give you some 5 to 10 seconds. So come, like derive your right answer, or just conclude your right answer. I'll be back after 10 seconds. Yes, the time is up. So the correct option here in for the first question is option C is the right answer. That is, religious denominations tend to ignore the unity of a man. That means if you observe the exact like passage, you will be understanding that no, they have firstly the option one is wrong, because no, they have used the extreme statement. That is one thing, but you can't rely extra like on this only thing, because extreme statements sometimes would tend to be right as well. So extreme statement by default you can't state them as wrong, but sometimes it will be right also. But you can just take it as a note, like they have used a extreme statement, but here what they have said is no man can live without adhering to some religious denominations. So they haven't talked about it. Of course there are people, like if they are left to be a judge of their own religion, they'll just praise their religion, like they just don't say that there's any religion that is wrong. But if they are left to be a judge of other religion, then they will say that there is no such religion that is right. That means they are not gonna agree with any other religion as right apart from their religion, if they're left to be a judge of other religion. But they haven't talked about adherence to the adhering or without adherence to religious denominations. So they haven't talked about non-adherence. So the option one is wrong. At the same time, the passage does not actually assume that an individual cannot survive without following any religious denomination. So the passage does not say that the individual cannot survive without following religious denomination. It hasn't said that. So that's why the option A is wrong. So let's see why the option C is wrong. Sorry, B is wrong. It is the option B says it is the duty of everyone to propagate one's religious denominations. That means as the passage is concerned only with the interpretation of religion from the different perspective, but not with the propagation of religion. Of course, the passage says gives the different perspective of the religion, but it does not actually propagates any religion. It not explicitly or implicitly says that it is the duty to propagate. It doesn't say even a word about propagation of a propagation of a religion. So they just give the different perspective, that's it. So it does not talk about the propagation of a religion, hence the option B is incorrect. So option D is also incorrect. Why do we say that option D is incorrect? Because it says that men do not understand their own religious denomination. How does it possible? See, as people believe that they understand their own religion, and on the basis of this understanding only, they tend to discard and disapprove the other denomination. Of course, they have the understanding of their own religion, no? So how can they say that men do not have understanding of their own religion? Of course, men has understanding of their own religious denomination. That's why they are disapproving with the other religion by comparing it. That's why they are disapproving other religion, no? So hence this option is wrong. But this option is exactly right, because it says that it's the duty of everyone sorry, not that one, this one is right, option C is right, because it says the religious denominations tend to ignore the unity of man. Of course these religious denominations are ignoring the unity of a man, because as when we consider our religion to be the correct one and all others as false, we are assuming that all men are not united by any shared common values or principles. So when we just argue that our religion is good and others argues that their religion is good, so there is an argument going on and there is no unity of a man can be seen. So this is what the actually, this is what we can just assume from the passage. So that's why the option C is right answer, and option B, A, D, these everything options are wrong, and option C is right. Hope you could understand this particular passage. Let's move to the next passage, second passage. So this particular passage says that it is certain that seditions, wars, and contempt or a breach of the laws are not so much to be imputed to the wickedness of the subjects as to the bad state of a dominion. Okay, for men are not born for citizen. Okay, remove this. So for the men are not born for citizenship, but must be made so. Besides, men's natural passions are everywhere the same, and its wickedness more prevails, and more offences are committed in one commonwealth than in another. It is certain that the former has neither enough pursued the end of unity, nor framed its laws with sufficient forethought, and that therefore it has failed in making quite good its right as a commonwealth. Okay, the question says that which among the following is the most logical and rational inferences? So they are asking about inferences. That is, what's the what's the inference that you can draw? Okay, I'll give you the 10 seconds and make sure the right answer, mark the right answer. Okay, time's up. For this particular question, they are asking inference. Inference means what is the conclusion that you can draw from the statements that are not given explicitly. Okay, the inference they are asking for this, the correct option is option C. That is, that dominion is best which pursues the aim of the unity and has laws for the good citizenship. So this is the right answer. Why option A is wrong? Because A is wrong because it says that seditions, wars, and breach of laws are inevitable in every dominion. They are saying that these particular things like wars, everything are inevitable. They can't be controlled in every dominion. They are saying that, but this is wrong because the option is an assumption that issues of seditions, wars, etc. are inevitable and they should not be imputed to the wickedness of the subjects. So it cannot be an inferences drawn based on the passages. So this particular whatever the sentence they have given, it acts as an assumption. Like these assumptions can be made, but it can't be a corollary like inferences. So it can't be. It doesn't. It is. It's not looking like a conclusion. No. So that's why the option A is wrong. Option B is wrong because it says that it is not the people but the sovereign who is responsible for all the problems of the dominion. It's saying like that. But why option B is wrong is as it lays the responsibility for all the issues on the sovereign, which is not the most rational inference that can be drawn based on the information provided. That means, of course, it lays the responsibility here. It lays the responsibility of all the issues on sovereign or the government, but actually which is not the rational inferences that can be made from the above information. So this can't be a rational inferences. Okay, here it's putting everything on the head of the government, so this can also be not the right answer. And the option D is wrong because it is impossible for men to establish good dominion. See how negative statement that they have given. Usually negative statement can also be a wrong answer. So you should make sure that these kind of a negative statement you should just mark it and make sure that if it suits with the questions, you can just mark that as a wrong answer. Okay, so here this is not the most rational and the logical inferences as the ability of a man or a sovereign to establish a good dominion is not being discussed and cannot be inferred as well. Of course, here they haven't talked about the ability of a man or a sovereign to establish good dominion. They're not talking about the ability or the establishment. So that's why option D is also wrong. Option C is right because, of course, it has been mentioned that if there are more crimes in the dominion in comparison to the other, it is actually due to the loss of lack of foresight or the sovereign has not pursued unity. But if state does so, it becomes a best state. That means, of course, here only they have mentioned in the passage. Let's search for it. Okay, they have said here, like, and if more offences are committed in one commonwealth than the other, it is certain that the former has neither enough pursued the end unity or nor framed its laws with sufficient foresight for thought, and therefore it has failed to make a quite good its right as a commonwealth. That means if any of the commonwealth or the dominion is failing, means if the war is happening, it is because they don't have a good laws. Otherwise, they don't have a unity in their citizen. That's why option C is right, where it says that the dominion is the best dominion which pursues the aim and unity and has a laws for the good citizenship. So hope this passage is also clear to you. Let's move on to the third passage. Okay. Uh, the third passage says that inequality violates a basic democratic norm, the equal standing of citizens. Equality is a relation that obtains between persons in respect of some fundamental characteristics that they share in common. Equality is, morally speaking, a default principle. Therefore, persons should not be discriminated on the grounds such as race, caste, gender, ethnicity, disability, or class. These features of human conditions are morally irrelevant. The idea that one should treat persons with respect not only because some of the persons some special features or talent, for example, skilled cricketers, gifted musicians, or literary giants, but because the persons are human beings, is by now part of common sense morality. So the question is, with reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. One is, equality is a prerequisite for people to participate in the multiple transaction of society from a position of confidence. Option 2 is, occurrence of inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy. See, observe this, occurrence of inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy. They are asking that. Okay, they are using the upstream statement, so be careful. So third statement says that equal standing of all the citizens is an idea that cannot actually be realized even in a democracy. The fourth option is, right to equality should be incorporated into our values and day-to-day political vocabulary. So which of the above assumptions are valid? Option A 1 and 2, option B 2 and 3, option C 1 and 4, and option D 3 and 4 only. So I'll give you the 10 seconds. So come up with the right answer. Yeah, time's up. So for this particular passage, the right option is option A, that is 1 and 2. So the statement 1 and 2 are right. So what is actually, let's see the wrong statements. So why these statements are wrong. So the third statement says that equal standing of all the citizens is an idea that cannot be actually be realized even in democracy. See how contrast this statement looks like. If you have observed the passage, it always talks about the removing the inequality, right? It talks about removing the inequality, but this particular statement is talking that equal standing of all the citizens is an idea that cannot actually be realized even in a democracy. So it actually becomes a contrast to the passage, so it cannot be the right option. So option 4 says that right to equality should be incorporated into our values and day-to-day political vocabulary. So does it sound like an assumption? It more sounds like a recommendation, or it more sounds like a suggestion that has been given. So hence this also cannot be the answer. So the right option is option A and B. So option A says that equality is a prerequisite for people to participate in the multiple transaction of society from a position of confidence. Of course, equality is very much important in order to participate in the democracy. Of course, as the passage also says that see, this particular equality is a fundamental characteristics. It says that it's very important, fundamental, prerequisite. So so hence the option A is correct. And we can also say that since the passage is almost like it's talking about the removal of inequalities, and we are assuming that equalities are prerequisite for people to participate in the social transaction and interactions with confidence. So option A is correct. And let's see why the option like statement 2 is correct. Means statement 2 says that occurrence of inequality is detrimental to the survival of democracy. Of course, inequality is detrimental. Of course, see, I have said that extreme statements are used, and most of the time these kind of an extreme statements, wherever they have quoted these kind of an extreme statements, they will go wrong. But the thing is, here they have used the extreme statement, and this particular statement is right. So that's why I said don't judge only based on the extreme, or only based on few like only one thing. Judge your right answer based on two or more clues. Okay, don't depend on only on the one thing. Okay, here of course it says that option 2 says that since the passage actually talks about the violation of democratic norms when inequality is present, and it is being assumed that the occurrence of inequality can threaten the survival of democracy itself, and therefore we should strive to remove it. So hence the option 2 becomes the statement 2 becomes right. Of course, if the inequality persists in the democracy, then it will be very much detrimental, like very much dangerous to the survival of democracy. So that's what these are the assumptions that we can just make from the passage given above. So let's move on to the third passage. Okay, aristocratic government. Just see, wait, I'll select the pen. Yeah, passage 4 says that aristocratic government ruins itself by limiting too narrowly the circle within which the power is confined. Oligarchy government ruins itself by incautious scramble for immediate wealth. But even a democracy ruins itself by excess of democracy. Its basic principle is the equal right of all to hold the office and determine public policy. This is the first glance a delightful arrangement. It becomes disastrous because the people are not properly equipped by the education to select the best rulers and the wisest courses. The people have not understanding and only repeat what their rulers are pleased to tell them. Such a democracy is tyranny or autocracy flat. So the question is, which one of the following statement best reflects the crux of the passages given above? Okay, option A says human societies experiment with different forms of government. Okay, option B says any form of government tends to deteriorate by excess of the basic principle. Option C says education of all the citizens ensure a perfect, functional, and sustainable democracy. Option D says that having a government is necessary evil because tyranny is inherent in any form of government. So I'll give you 10 seconds, come up with the right answer. Let's start. Yeah, we are back, and the right option for this particular question is the option B is the right one. That is, any form of government tends to deteriorate by excess of basic principle. And this you can quote here immediately, like here only in the initial lines itself. You can just quote this out. Like it says that any form of government, it can be aristocratic government, it ruins itself by its own, excess of using its own principles. Like aristocratic ruins itself by limiting too narrowly in the circle with the circle within which the power is confined, and oligarchy government ruins itself by incautious scramble for immediate wealth, and also the democracy ruins itself by excess of democracy itself. So the option B says that any form of government, it tends to deteriorate by its own excess of basic principle. So let's see why this option A, C, D look similar, but why they are wrong. So option A says that human societies experiment with different forms of government. Of course, this is actually quoted in the passage. Of course, the passage says that human society, experiments with aristocratic government. Sometimes it goes with or oligarchy government, and some states even follow democracy. Of course, it has been quoted, but this is not the right option, because they have asked for the crux. Crux means which is the main important point of the passage. That is called as crux. But this is not the main important point of the passage. The main important point of the passage says that any form of government, it will deteriorate by its own excess use of its own basic principle. Okay, that's what this crux means. And option D, C is wrong, because education of all citizens ensures a perfect, functional, and sustainable democracy. See, here option C is wrong, because author is not advocating that democracy is most desirable and not providing any recommendation to achieve it. But although the author gives the lack of proper education as one of the reason as to why democracy does not serve its intended purposes. So it is not the crux of the passage. Okay, and the reason being that such a conclusion would ignore the first part of the discussion on the oligarchy. So it says that of course he quotes education. If the people are not educated well, if they'll just not select the best rulers. Okay, he's saying that education is one of the reason. Okay, but it's not the main point. Education of all the citizen would ensure, like if everybody would become educationist, like everybody is educated, then it cannot ensure a perfect or functional democracy. He hasn't quoted that. So option D is also wrong, because having a government is a necessary evil, because tyranny is inherent in any form of government. This option D says that because although it has been posited that any form of government can be a tyrannical, the author does not support the existence of any form of government. He does not support any form of government. So that's what about the passage 4. Let's move on to the next passage. That is passage number 5. Okay, hope you are clear with that. Yeah, here passage 5 says that India faces challenging immediate future. Okay, wait, I'll select the pen. Yeah, India faces a challenging immediate future in the energy and climate policy making. The problems are multiple: sputtering fossil fuel production capability, limited access to electricity, modern cooking fuel for the poorest, and rising fuel imports in an unstable global energy context, continued electricity pricing, governance challenges leading to its costly deficit and or surplus supply, and not least growing environmental contestation around land, water, and air. But all is not bleak. Growing energy efficiency programs, integrated urbanization, and transport policy discussions, inroads to enhancing energy access and security, and bold renewable energy initiatives, even if not fully conceptualized, suggest the promise of transformation. So the question is, which one of the following statement best reflects the critical message, that is important message, that is conveyed by the passage given above? Option A says that India's energy decision making process is even more complex and interconnected. India's energy and climate policy is heavily tuned to sustainable development. Okay, that does the passage says this, and India's energy and climate actions are not compatible with lots of broader social and economic environmental goals. And option D says that India's energy decision making process is straightforward, supply oriented, and ignores the demand side. Okay, I'll give you 10 seconds. Come back then. Yeah, we are back, and the right answer for this particular question is option A. That is, option A says India's energy decision making process is even more complex and interconnected. See, of course, by reading the passage, we can just derive this. That is important. That is the important thing, because if we just look at the energy decision making, this process very much interconnected. See, it's not only depends upon our country; it also depends upon the other countries which imports us, and it's interconnected. And it also looks so complex, no? Like, of course, the we have to provide LPG gas to the poor, but the price is rising, and we are making the policies also. So they are just complex at the same time, like they are interconnected. So the option A is right. So option A, we can just see that as the passages talks about the challenges and prospects of energy climate policy, the problems are multiple, and they mention a lot of factors like increasing fossil fuel production capabilities and unstable global market, etc., and illustrates how the energy decision making process is complex and interconnected. That's why the option A is right, and the option B is wrong, because option B says that India's energy and climate policy is heavily tuned to sustainable development goals. So have they ever talked about sustainable development goals on the above passage? In the above passage, see, the statement only talks about India's energy policy tuned to sustainable development goals. So it does not talk about variety of functions that they are involved in the energy and climate policy making. Okay, it just links that. That's it. Okay. So hence the option B is wrong, and option C is also wrong, because option C says that India's energy and climate actions are not compatible with its broader social, economic, and environmental goals. So the option only talks about how climate actions are not compatible with social, economic goals. So thus it does not reflect the critical message of the passage, so which deals with the complexities of policy making in the energy sector and few bright spots we have. So hence the option C is wrong, and option D is also wrong, because it says that India's energy decision making process is straightforward, policy oriented, and ignores the demand side. See, as the passage considers demand side fluctuations, it considers that there is a demand side fluctuation is there, as well by mentioning the rising fuel imports. In addition, it is very much evident in the passage that the policy and decision making process is complex due to several factors like imports deficit and saturated production capabilities, etc. So hence the option D can be considered as wrong. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next passage, that is passage 6. So what does it say? So there are like, oh my god, I have to select the pen every time I get into a new slide. Okay. Yeah, there are reports that some of the antibiotics sold in the market are fed to poultry and other livestock as growth promoters. Okay, and overusing these substances can create superbugs pathogens that are resistant to multiple drugs and could be passed along humans. Mindful of that, some farming companies have stopped using drugs to make chickens gain weight faster. Since Denmark banned antibiotic growth promoters in 1990, the major pork exporter says it is producing more pigs and animals gets fewer diseases. So the question says, which one of the following statement best reflects the critical message? What is the important message that is conveyed by the passage given above? So the option A is people should avoid consuming the products of animal farming, and option B says that food of animal origin should be replaced with foods of plant origin. Option C is that C says that using antibiotics on animal should be banned, and option D says that antibiotics should only be used to treat diseases. Okay, I'll give you the 10 seconds and come up with the right answer. Yeah. So for this particular question, option D is the right answer. Option D says that antibiotics should only be used to treat the diseases. Okay, why D is right option? Because the passage actually mentions that ill effect of antibiotics as growth promoters, and how some farming companies have like Denmark, they have major exporters, like they have banned the antibiotic growth promoters, but not its use as a drug to treat diseases. So we can just above, like from the above passage, we can make sure that these particular antibiotics have been banned by the companies, because they made sure that it has to be used only to treat the diseases. Okay, not as a growth promoters. Okay, that's why they are just they have banned these kind of antibiotic to be used as a growth promoters. Hence we can derive that this particular statement is right. Of course option A is wrong, because people should it says that people should avoid consuming the product of animal farming. So where does in the passage talked about avoid consumption? They haven't talked, no. Like option E, like they have suggested nothing about what should or what should not be consumed by the people. So how can they quote like this, Halwa? So this is wrong. So option B says that food of animal origin should be replaced with the foods of plant origin. So this replacement, again in the passage they haven't talked about replacement. Okay, they in the passages like name they nowhere just talks about replacing animal origin food with the plant origin foods. So it merely reflects the side effects of using antibiotics for other purposes than treating diseases. Okay, so that's why the option B is also wrong. And option C is also wrong, because it says that using antibiotics on animals should be banned. Okay, this is not a critical message. Like, of course, the passage nowhere talks about banning antibiotics on animals. It only mentions the trend of minimizing the use of antibiotics on animals given their ill effects on human health. Because by using the antibiotics on animals, there is an ill effect on the humans. So that's why they are just talking about the trend of minimizing the antibiotics. They have nowhere just talked about banning the antibiotics. Hence the option C is also wrong, and option D is right, as I have mentioned already. Okay, let's move to the next passage, that is passage 7. So here, according to the passage 7, it says that policymakers and media have replaced blame for skyrocketing food prices on a variety of factors, including high fuel prices, bad weather in key food producing countries, and the diversions of land to non-food production. And increased emphasis, however, has been placed on surge in demand for food from the most populous emerging economies. It seems highly probable that mass consumption in these countries could be well poised to create a good food crisis. Okay, the question is, with reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Oil producing countries are one of the reasons for high food prices. Option B says that if there is a food crisis in the world in the near future, it will be in the emerging economies. So which of the above statement is valid? Option A, one only. Option B, two only. Option C, both one and two. Option D, neither one or two. Okay, I'll give you the 10 seconds. Come back with the right answer. Yeah, we are back. So the right option for this particular question is option D. That is neither one nor two. That means neither the two options are right. Okay, both the options are wrong. Why both the options are wrong? Because the option one says oil producing countries are one of the reasons for high prices. See, the passage says that, of course, the food prices are increasing because oil prices are increasing. That's why the food prices are increasing. But they haven't explicitly said that oil producing countries are reasons for high food prices. They haven't mentioned that. So option A is wrong. See, as the passage only mentions that high food prices are leading to increase in the food prices, but they have nowhere explicitly mentions oil producing countries are like being one of the reason for high fuel prices. Okay, they haven't explicitly said, and so option 1 is wrong. So option 2 says that if there is a food crisis in the world in the near future, it will be in the emerging economies. This is also wrong because see, as the passage mentions that food crisis will be caused due to the emerging economies tendency of mass consumption. So wherever there will be emerging economies, so they'll have a tendency of mass consumption. So as a result, there will be more consumption of a food. As a result, there will be a increase, like there will be increase in the food crisis in those particular emerging economies. That's what the passage says. However, the passage only mentions emerging economies as a causative agent. So passage mentions emerging economies as a causative agent. It's a cause. It's not the result. Okay. It mentions the emerging economies only as a causative agent, okay, rather than a resultant aspect. So and it cannot be derived the passage that the food crisis will occur in the emerging economies. Okay, so as a result we cannot derive from the passage that these are the emerging economies, you know, they are the like food crisis will occur in the emerging. We can't derive that particular statement. Okay, so the given option is more suitable for inference of the passage rather than the assumption. So it's more suitable for inference, okay, and than the assumptions. Hence, both the options are wrong, and the right answer is option D. Neither one are not. Let's move on to the next passage. That is passage number 8. So here, the passage number 8 says that a central message of modern development economics is the importance of income growth, by which is meant as gross domestic product. In theory, rising GDP creates employment and investment opportunities. As the income grows in a country where the level of GDP was once low, households, communities, governments are increasingly able to set aside some funds for the production of the things that make for a good life. Today, GDP has assumed such a significant place in the development lexicon that if someone mentions economic growth, we know that they mean growth in GDP. Okay, the question number 8 says that with reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Okay, as I said, make sure that you underline these particular keywords. Okay, so that you'll be knowing like what to derive from the passage. Okay, so assumption 1 is rising GDP is essential for a country to be a developed country. Oh my god. Option B says that rising GDP guarantees a reasonable distribution of income to all household guarantees. Okay, option like which of the above passage above assumptions are valid? Option 1 only, option B 2 only, option C both 1 and 2, option D neither one not. Okay, I'll give you the 10 seconds and come back with right answer. Yeah, we are back with the answer. Like the right option is neither one nor two. That means both the statements are wrong because the first statement says that rise in GDP is essential for a country to be a developed country. Okay. See, one thing is they haven't talked about developed country. Okay, and that is one thing. And even if they have implicitly said that, like they have said that the passage says that in theory, rising GDP creates employment and investment opportunities, and this in turn set aside funds necessary for the good life. Thus, assuming only rising GDP cannot be said as essential criteria for a developed country, but income redistribution also plays a critical role as mentioned in the passage. Okay, so like we can't say that rising GDP is very, like it's the only essential for the country to be a developed country. No, we can't say that. It's a wrong statement. Okay, and the second statement is also wrong because it says that the rising GDP guarantees a reasonable okay, 1 second, I'm running out of battery. Yeah, so the rising GDP guarantees reasonable distribution of income to all the household. So this also they haven't mentioned in the passage. So here, like, the passage like nowhere mentions that the rising GDP guarantees a reasonable distribution of to all the household. It doesn't mention that, so the option B is also wrong. So let's move on to the next passage, that is passage number 9. So here they have talked about fig trees. Okay, the fig trees are considered as sacred in India and East Asia and Africa, and are common in agriculture and urban landscape where other large trees are absent. So wherever the large trees are absent, these fig trees can be seen. And in national forest and fig trees provide food for the wildlife when other resources are scarce, and support a high density and diversity of frugivores, that is fruit eating animals. If frugivorous birds and bats continues to visit to fig trees located in sites with a high human disturbances, um, sacred fig trees may promote frugivore abundance. And under favorable microclimate, plenty of seedlings of other tree species would grow around fig trees. Okay, so the question 9 says that on the basis of the above passage given above, the following assumptions have been made. One is the fig trees can often be keystone species in the natural forest. Option B says that fig trees can grow where other large woody species cannot grow. Okay. Option 3 says that sacred trees can have a role in biodiversity conservation. Option 4 says that fig trees have a role in seed dispersal of the other species. So which of the following assumption is valid? Option A 1, 2 only. Option B 3 only. Option C 2 and 4 only. Option 4 like 1, 3, 4 only. Okay, like come up with the right answer. I'll give you the 10-second break. Okay. Yeah, we are back, and the right option is option D 1, 3, 4. So that option A is right, option 3 is right, option 4 is right, but option 2 is wrong. Why option 2 is wrong? Let's conclude that. The fig trees, it says that the fig trees can grow where other large woody species cannot grow. No, like of course they have said here that it just grows where the other large uh, you know large trees are absent, but it doesn't mean that it can grow only where other wood species cannot grow. See here it says that the passage mentions that biodiversity is prevailing around the fig trees. Wherever there's a fig tree, there will be biodiversity in the form of like frugivorous bats, animals, and human living in coexistence, and hence the third statement holds a valid assumption. However, it is not a it's not the only valid assumption. Okay, it holds a valid assumption, but it's not the wholly valid assumption, because it says that of course it has a like biodiversity around it, so we can't say this, it's not justifiable. So it's not a valid assumption, it's just an assumption, so we can't take this. So option A is like 1 is right, because it says that fig trees can often be a keystone species in the natural forest. So I see here, of course, the passage actually just mentions that this fig tree providing a food for the wildlife species and supporting the density, diversity of frugivorous where resources are scarce and absent. So that is essentially what a keystone species signifies for an ecosystem. So wherever there is a keystone species, the keystone species will do, what does it do? It actually provides food to the wildlife species. It supports the diversity of frugivorous, and like it gives food for the species when the food is scarce. So this is what a keystone species does. So that's why this is the exact correct statement. Okay, however, the passage is devoid of any affirmative mention of a large woody species, giving way for the growth of its of fig tree in their absence. So hence the statement 2 is particularly woody species can't be inferred established from the passage. Okay. So I'm coming to the option C, which is right. That is, it says that sacred tree can sacred tree can have a role in biodiversity conservation. See, of course, no. Like the passage mentions that plenty of seedlings of other tree species are found to grow around the fig trees. So, due to the visit of frugivorous birds and bats, so lots of birds will be, coming to eat the fig fruit. As a result, they will just disperse the seeds of the other trees. So, as a result, large number of, the seedlings can be seen around the fig trees. So hence, under the favorable microclimate condition, it can be directly inferred that the fig trees can have a role in the seed dispersal of the same. Okay, so that's what the passage says. And option D is like option D says that fig trees have a role in seed dispersal. Of course, it will have a role in the seed dispersal. We can just deduce it from the above passages, and it's most appropriate answer. So hence the option D is the right answer. Let's move on to the next passage, that is passage 10. So what does it say? So at the heart of agroecology is the idea that agroecosystems should mimic the biodiversity levels and functioning of natural ecosystem. Such agricultural mimic like their natural models can be productive, pest resistant, and nutrient conserving and resilient to shocks and stress. In the ecosystem, there is no waste nutrient are recycled indefinitely, and agroecology aims at closing nutrient loops, that is manure. That it also harnesses natural processes to control pests and build soil fertility, that is through intercropping, and agroecological practices include integrating trees with livestock and crops. So the question is, consider the following, that is cover crop, fertigation, hydroponics, and mixed farming, and polyculture, vertical farming. So which of the above farming practices can be compatible with the agroecology as implied by the passage? So these are the options. So give me the right answer. I'll give you the 10 seconds break. Yeah. Yeah, we are back, and the right answer for this particular type of question is option A, that is 1, 4, 5. That is cover crop is right, and the mixed farming is right, and polyculture is right. That is fifth one, that is right. But this vertical farming is wrong, and fertigation is wrong, and hydroponics is also wrong. So why the option A is correct? Because of course, the passage mentioned that farming practices compatible with the agroecology include integration of trees with livestock and crops. Like here in agroecology or agrosystem, they will integrate the livestock like those goats or cows. They will integrate these kind of a livestock with crop. Okay, and they'll also integrate these with the trees. So this integrated farming is called as agroecology. Okay, that's what mentioned in the passage. Okay, but this boils down to the practices of cover cropping and mixed farming and polyculture. All these particular particular thing actually matches with this one, like cover crop, mixed farming, polyculture, but it does not goes well with vertical farming, fertigation, and hydroponics. They just match with a modern type of farming. Okay, there's some technology involved. Okay, so hence option A is right, and option B is incorrect, because option B is like it says that 2, 3, 4, it has like the farming practices of fertigation and hydroponics, they are artificial methods, and they are not compatible with agroecology systems mentioned in the passage. Hence it can be eliminated. See here, it has got this kind of fertigation thing, and also it has this kind of hydroponics. They're all just modern technologies or artificial technologies, and it does not goes with agroecology, as this can be eliminated. And option C is also incorrect, because applying based on the above argument, this option can also be just eliminated. And option D is also wrong, because the passage mentions that agroecology aiming at closing nutrient loops, and which means that returning the nutrients that come out of the soil back to the soil. We are returning the nutrient that has come out of the soil to back to the soil, no? So that's what this passage is talking about. So vertical farming akin to the hydroponics is a soil-less farming, and hence not compatible with agroecology. When it comes to the vertical farming or hydroponics, it uses water as a base. It's not using soil. Okay, so this can't be matched. Hence the option D is also wrong. Okay, and we are just now moving on to the next passage, that is of passage 11. Okay, computers increasingly deal with, yeah, computers increasingly deal not just with abstract data like credit card details and databases, but also with the real world of physical objects and vulnerable human bodies. A modern car is a computer on wheels. A aeroplane is a computer on wings. The arrival of the Internet of Things will see computers baked into everything from road signs and MRI scanners and to the prosthetics and insulin pumps. So there is a little evidences that these gadgets will be any more trustworthy than their desktop counterparts. Hackers have already proved that they can take remote control of the internet connected cars and pacemakers. So question 11 says that which one of the following statement best reflects the most critical inferences that can be made from the above passage given above. Okay, inference, they have told us to find the inference. Okay, that is the conclusion. So computers are not completely safe. Companies producing the softwares do not take cybersecurity seriously. Stringent data security laws are needed. The present trend of communication technologies will affect our lives in future. So I'll give you the 10 seconds. Come up with the right answer. Yeah, we are back, and the right option is option D. That is, the present trend of communication technologies will affect our lives in the future. Okay. See, why option 1 is wrong? The option 1 says that the computers are not completely safe. See, the computers, though, are vulnerable to risk or threat of intrusion or hacking. The passage does not establish the fact that they are not completely safe. Okay. So this is an extreme statement. If you just look at it, computers are like they are not like it just says that computers are not completely safe. It is a very extreme statement, and the passage does not establish this. Okay, and so option A is wrong. So option B says that companies producing the software do not take cyber security seriously. See, though the passage mentions security breaches, of course, by hackers, but does not sufficiently establish the information that companies building software are not taking cybersecurity seriously. So there is no connection between that. Okay, the passage does not mention about this cyber security of the companies. So hence the option B is also wrong. So option C is there that stringent data security laws are needed. See, due to the rising vulnerabilities and threats and data breaches in case of hackers taking over, the need for the stringent data security laws can be indirectly inferred. We can just indirectly say that, or you can indirectly infer that there is a need for the proper laws. But however, it is a fallout of the recent trends of communication technologies and their complexities, which is more critical inference of the passage. Hence, the option C is also wrong. Okay, and the option D is right, because actually it says that this is the most appropriate critical inference of the passage we can draw, because the new trends in various communication technologies have infused visible complexities through the integration of computers in various fields of life, and further mentions of the arrival of the Internet of Things about which is bound to affect the lives going forward. So I feel like this is the exact very good inference that can be drawn from the above passage, and this is just two source, and hence the option D is the right answer. So let's move on to the next passage, that is passage number 12. So here a social and physical environment riddled with poverty, inequalities, unhygienic and insanity conditions generates the risk of infectious diseases. Okay, the hygiene has different levels: personal hygiene, personal domestic, and community hygiene. So there is no doubt that personal cleanliness brings down the rate of infectious diseases. But the entry of the market into this domain has created a false sense of security that gets conditioned and reinforced by the onslaught of advertisements. Experience in Western Europe shows that, along with the personal hygiene, general improvements in environmental conditions and components like clean water, sanitation, food security have brought down infant and child death infectious rates considerably. The obsession with the hand hygiene also brings in the persistent influence of the market on the personal health, overriding or marginalizing the negative impact on our ecology. and the emergence of resistant germs. So the question number 12 says that on the basis of the above passage given above, the following assumptions have been made. Okay, they are asking about the assumption. The option 1 says that people who are obsessed with the personal hygiene tend to ignore the community hygiene. And option 2 says that emergence of multi-drug resistant germs can be prevented by personal cleanliness. Option 3 says that entry of the market in the domain of the hygiene increase the risk of infectious diseases. Option 4 says that scientific and micro level interventions are not sufficient to bring down the burden of the infectious diseases. Option 5 says it is community hygiene implemented through public health measures that is really effective in the battle against infectious disease. So which of the following assumption is valid? Okay, I'll give you the 10 seconds. Come with the right answer. Yeah, we are back, and here for this particular question or the passage, the right answer is option C, that is 4 and 5. Okay, that is where is 4 here and where is 5 here. See here, option 1 is wrong. Why option 1 is wrong? Because it says that people who are obsessed with personal hygiene tend to ignore the community hygiene. See, of course, statement 1 is an extreme statement, and the passage does not establish that the fact that the people obsessed with the personal hygiene tend to ignore the community hygiene is extreme, and the passage not mentioned that. And further, there is no mention of the multi-drug resistant germ rather than resistant germ which cannot be prevented from just personal hygiene. Okay, hence the statement 2 stands an invalid assumption. See, statement 2 is also invalid assumption because they haven't talked about multi-drug resistant. Okay, so rather the resistant germs like which cannot be prevented from just even being personally so hygiene, we cannot control the multi-drug resistant kind of germs. Okay, so this is like completely irrelevant. That's why the option A is like wrong, like both statement 1 and 2 just is wrong. So option, when it comes to the option B, that is 3 and 4, so that option 3 says that entry of the market in the domain of the hygiene increases the risk of infectious diseases. See, here it can be inferred from the passage that the personal hygiene undoubtedly reduces the rate of infectious diseases. Okay, further, the entry of the market in the domain has created a false sense of security. It cannot be established that it increases the risk of infectious diseases per se. Hence, the statement 3 stands as an invalid assumption. Okay, so this also becomes invalid. And option C is right because, of course, experience from the Western Europe have established that direct role of community hygiene through public measures effective in reducing infectious diseases and death rates. So, in statement 5 stands valid. And the scientific and micro level interventions referring to a personal and domestic hygiene not sufficient to bring down the burden of diseases can be directly inferred from the essence of the passage. So hence the option 4 seems valid. Okay, and option D is also wrong. See, 1 2 4 because of the, like I've already explained, like based on the above deduction statement, like we can just delete it, and by the elimination technique we can just eliminate it, and 1 2 stand eliminated, leading to the option being incorrect to the statement 4, and so statement 4 stands invalid. Okay, let's see. Okay, we are done with this and we will continue in the next part. Okay, well, finally we have some, literally I think some, yeah, we have some 12 passages remaining. We will complete it in the next round. Okay, we will name it as a part 2 2024 because it already it went up to 2 hours, 1 hour. So I don't want to make my video too long, so we'll drop it and we'll make a part 2. Okay, thank you for watching. Yeah, have a great day.